Good to have you with us. This is ARIRANG News. It's 4 p.m. here in Seoul, and I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. We begin in Daejeon, where a memorial ceremony took place this morning, marking the 5th anniversary of North Korea's torpedo attack on the Cheonan, a South Korean warship. President Park Geun-hye urged the nation to remember the victims' sacrifices and called on North Korea to stop provocations. Choi You-sun has our top story.
From a senior chief petty officer who was only 1 month away from his wedding to another officer whose then newborn daughter is now 5 years old. President Park Geun-hye expressed her condolences to the 46 sailors who perished in the attack 5 years ago, as well as a chief warrant officer who lost his life in the recovery mission.
정부는 국가 방위 역량을 더욱 확충하고 굳건한 한미 동맹을 바탕으로 확고한 전쟁 억지력을 확보해 다시는 천안함 피격과 같은 일이 일어나지 않도록 할 것입니다.
While North Korea denies its involvement, a multinational team of experts concluded that a North Korean torpedo caused a corvette to split in half and sink in the West Sea. As this year marks the 70th anniversary of the division of the Koreas, President Park urged the North to stop thinking nuclear arms will provide protection and encouraged its leadership to come out of isolation and seek real security and development. She also stressed that achieving unification in a manner that satisfies South and North Koreans would be a way to ensure that the sacrifices made by the sailors were not in vain.
통일이 내일 당장 오지는 않더라도 미래에 반드시 이루어질 것임을 믿고 지금부터 차근차근 준비를 해 나가야 합니다.
Vowing to ensure the Korean people remember the honorable Navy men, the president promised to crack down on irregularities, specifically referring to the Navy's recent procurement corruption. Choi You-sun, ARIRANG News.
The leaders of Korea's main political parties also attended the Cheonan Memorial Ceremony in Daejeon this morning. Ahead of that event, though, the parties clashed over the main opposition's past reluctance to officially point the finger at North Korea for the sinking. Park Ji-won has this story.
Both party leaders were in Daejeon on Thursday to pay their respects to the 46 South Korean sailors who lost their lives in the Cheonan sinking 5 years ago. Ruling Saenuri Party leader Kim Moo-sung was joined by the party's floor leader Yoo Seung-min and other key members of the party. The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy's leader Moon Jae-in was also there to mourn the sailors. A day before, the former presidential candidate finally acknowledged the sinking was the result of a North Korean attack. Up until now, he and some other liberal politicians had raised doubts about the results of a South Korean-led international investigation that concluded that Cheonan sank after being hit by a torpedo fired from a North Korean submarine. The ruling party leader sharply criticized Moon on Thursday, saying the acknowledgement came far too late. Speaking at a Supreme Council meeting in Daejeon, Kim urged the rival party to apologize to the lost sailors, their families, and the people for having opposed to the Assembly's adoption of a resolution condemning North Korea 5 years ago. Experts say Moon's recent emphasis on security issues and his change of views about the Cheonan sinking reflects the Liberal Party's efforts to embrace conservative voters ahead of next month's by-elections and general elections next year. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
The Cheonan warship attack was a major blow to the country, but the people who were most affected, of course, were the bereaved families of the victims. Many still struggle with their grief today. ARIRANG's Kim Hyun-bin talked to some of them. Take a look.
At 9:22 p.m. on March 26, 2010, a North Korean torpedo slammed into the side of the South Korean warship Cheonan, claiming the lives of 46 out of 104 South Korean sailors on board. The power of the blast split the ship's stern in two as it patrolled near South Korea's western Baekneung-do Island, located just 10 kilometers from the contested maritime border. 5 years have passed, but for the family members of the sailors who died, the pain is still fresh.
I love you, my son. If he was alive, he would be 30. I will come find you. I promise Dad that whoever dies first will come find you in the afterlife, no matter what.
I want to restore everything. I feel guilt for sending him off as a career soldier and for everything I wasn't able to do for him. That I really regret.
Many survivors of the Cheonan tragedy have come back to pay tribute to their fallen comrades, but also to find some peace of mind in their work.
I miss the days when I used to roam the seas with my comrades. We will do everything we can to protect the sea that you died defending.
Thousands of people have been paying tribute to the 46 sailors who perished in the line of duty 5 years ago. It's a solemn day. It also highlights why South Korea needs to maintain the utmost military readiness at all times. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News, Daejeon.
And moving on to other stories, the top U.S. military officer is in Seoul this Thursday for talks with his South Korean counterpart. General Martin Dempsey's trip comes amid a heated controversy over the possible deployment of the so-called THAAD missile defense system to South Korea. Our Hwang Sung-hee reports.
Will the top U.S. military officer address the possible deployment of a controversial U.S. missile defense system during his visit to Seoul? During his 3-day stay, General Martin Dempsey, chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, will hold talks with his South Korean counterpart Choi You-sun and meet with President Park Geun-hye and Defense Minister Han Min-gu. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said the military officers will discuss pending issues, such as transferring wartime operational control and responding to North Korean threats. It stressed the deployment of the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Battery, also known as THAAD, is not on the agenda. Ahead of the visit, which also took him to Japan, Dempsey said the U.S. is making progress on an integrated air and missile umbrella defense system with Seoul and Tokyo. The remark fueled speculation that his trip is aimed at bolstering Washington's trilateral missile defense cooperation. The two allies say there have been no official talks about deploying THAAD on South Korean soil. But Washington is pushing the issue, saying THAAD will defend the South from North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. Seoul is more cautious as its neighbors, namely China and Russia, have voiced opposition, saying it threatens their national security. Even if the issue doesn't come up this time around, pundits say speculation will rear up again when U.S. Secretary of Defense Ashton Carter visits South Korea early next month. Hwang Sung-hee, ARIRANG News.
A group of academics in the U.S. who recently published their concerns about the Japanese government's efforts to whitewash past wartime atrocities, they say they are sticking to their guns. This comes after some scholars in Japan called for revisions to a U.S. history book that details Japan's wartime sexual slavery. Connie Kim has more.
Professor Alexis Student from the University of Connecticut says she and her fellow academics will not retract or alter the statement they published in the March edition of the American Historical Association periodical. The statement said that no government should have the right to censor history and accused the Abe administration of questioning established history. Student told Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency Tuesday that her group will continue to support academic freedom for people engaged in researching and teaching history. She was responding to a group of Japanese scholars who demanded last week that U.S. publication McGraw-Hill revise a history book's description of Japan's military sexual slaves. Historians estimate some 200,000 women, mostly from Korea, were forced to work in brothels for the Japanese military during World War II. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe also claims there are errors in the history book, which is used in classrooms. Earlier this year, Abe said he was surprised to see how the American textbook described the sexual enslavement issue and pledged continued efforts for changes. His administration continues to deny state responsibility for the country's past atrocities. Japan's latest claim follows a string of revisions the country has been issuing about its wartime atrocities. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
And in other international news, investigators in the German budget airline crash are braving difficult weather conditions and mountain terrain to search for clues. One of the black box recorders retrieved reportedly holds some shocking data on the final moments leading up to the crash. Kwon So-ah reports.
Some valuable data has been retrieved from one of the 2 black boxes on the ill-fated Germanwings plane. The cockpit voice recorder was found a few hours after Tuesday's crash.
It is damaged, but it is possible to reconstruct the black box in order to examine it in the coming hours and determine a number of details about this catastrophe.
The retrieved recording suggests that one of the 2 pilots may have been locked out of the cockpit in the lead-up to the devastating crash. The New York Times has an unnamed source from the investigation saying you can hear one pilot lightly knocking, then hitting the door more aggressively, trying to smash it down. Following this, there was no more conversation to be heard. What's also known is that the plane did not descend suddenly. It was drastically but consistently falling, indicating that there was no explosion in the middle of the flight. Investigators say the pulverized debris and the way it scattered reinforces that conclusion. But authorities say it may take weeks or even months for full results. The casing of the second black box has been found, but not the recording device itself. Meanwhile, Germanwings is supporting the families of the deceased as they promised to take them as close to the crash site as possible. A counseling unit has also been set up. On Wednesday, local time, leaders of the 3 most affected countries, French President François Hollande, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and Spain's Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy paid their respects to the victims at the search headquarters. Kwon-soa, ARIRANG News.
Korea's latest satellite is now successfully orbiting the Earth. Officials say the satellite has made its first contact with Korea's ground station. The new satellite will help enable 24-hour monitoring of the Earth's surface regardless of weather conditions. Our Kim Min-ji tells us more.
The Korea Aerospace Research Institute confirmed that the Korea Multipurpose Satellite 3A established radio contact with Korea's ground station Thursday afternoon. It made 2 previous radio communications, and all of its solar panels have been deployed to generate power. The satellite, also known as the ARIRANG 3A, was launched just past 7 a.m. Korea time from Russia's Yasny launch base. It was sent into space on the Dnep, a Russian launch vehicle converted from a Soviet-era intercontinental ballistic missile. The launch comes as Korea is aiming to make inroads into the global space industry. Satellite development around the world is ramping up, and Korea plans to develop its own launch vehicle for testing by 2019. Korean officials hope the ARIRANG 3A will boost the country's ability to monitor the Earth's surface and complement the nation's 3 other multi-purpose satellites currently in space.
Until now, satellite development was led by the government, but this time, private companies put a lot of effort into the making of the ARIRANG 3A. We see this as a big opportunity for Korea to develop further in this area.
The 1,100-ton satellite has the most powerful optical lens of any Korean satellite yet. It will be able to provide clear images of any object larger than 50 centimeters in diameter on the Earth's surface. It's also equipped with an infrared sensor that can monitor volcanic movements or forest fires. The ARIRANG 3A will circle the Earth 15 times a day for the next 4 years. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
The government's aggressive stimulus measures and central bank rate cuts are not bearing fruit, not just yet. Korea's consumer confidence continues to remain sluggish with no signs of inflation meeting the central bank's target zone. Our Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
Korean consumers' inflation expectations for the next 1 year came in at a record low of 2.5%. It also marked a 0.1 percentage point drop from a month ago, as policymakers see expected inflation as a window into future inflation. Forecasts are growing that the central bank is going to fall short of its inflation target band of 2.5% to 3.5%. The slumping expectations for prices to increase come after the central bank cut its key rate 3 times over the last 8 months as a means to prop up ailing domestic consumption and revitalize the economy. And despite such efforts, there are no signs of improving consumer sentiment either. Consumer sentiment has been on an upward trend this year, but that came to an early end in March. The Bank of Korea's Consumer Sentiment Index came in at 101 this month, down 2 points from February. The central bank attributes the drop to the sluggish pace of recovery and the weakening prospects of income from interest due to the record low key rate of 1.75%. A reading above 100 means optimists outnumber pessimists. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
The Korean government has rolled out its vision of how it plans to transform the nation over the next 5 years into a, quote, creative economy and a global ICT leader. More than $8 billion have been earmarked for that vision. Our Song Ji-sun reports.
Creative Korea led by ICT. That's the key slogan in a new roadmap from Korea's Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning. The plan, dubbed K-ICT Strategies, lays out a vision for 2020. The government will inject $8.2 billion over the next 5 years, looking for a market expansion of 8% compared to the current 6% growth. Government officials hope exports will top $210 billion in 2020, up from the current $174 billion. Among the key projects unveiled Wednesday, Seoul aims to demonstrate 5G technologies at the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games ahead of its commercial launch in 2020. Korea also expects to become the first to launch terrestrial UHD television services that same year. Korea is already taking the lead in semiconductors, display panels, and smartphones, and Seoul seeks to secure the top spot for the next 2 to 3 decades by supporting innovation and convergence. The set of measures follows the ministry's restructuring announced earlier this month. The moves were made to better adapt to the fast development of the ICT industries and to take prompt actions to achieve its initiatives in President Park's creative economy drive. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News.
Bringing you the fresh updates from stories breaking in Korea and abroad. We give you a bigger and better picture of the world. Join Laah Hyun-kyung live from Seoul. Every weekday, only on ARIRANG.
It's East meets West at the National Changa Company of Korea. The traditional Korean opera company is staging a classic German play as its first performance of the year. Our Im Yoon-hee has this story.
There is no love like a mother's love. Even though this mother adopted this abandoned child, can she still love him like her own? The tender motherly voice that cries for him is real. The tears that she sheds for her child are real as well. But with one arm in the birth mother's hand and the other arm in the adoptive mother's hand, what determines a true mother's love? The Caucasian Chalk Circle is a German play written by Bertolt Brecht. It's a play about a mother's love. But it also echoes an age-old parable with lessons that Korean-Japanese director Chung Eui-shin, along with the National Changa Company of Korea, aims to share in the form of Korea's traditional pansori.
Pansori is a unique form of music. I have experience with operas and plays, which are different. And although this is my first time with pansori, I realized that the movement and voice had to be in rhythm. This piece by Brecht has meaningful content about the war, and interestingly, it melds perfectly into pansori form. There's a lot of emotional capacity to pansori, and a chance to show a truly sorrowful voice.
But the addition of pansori to this performance also means a special stage. There are 3 angles to the stage, drawing the audience into the performers and their performance, an intimate setting familiar to pansori. Another element of pansori also carried over is the presence of a lead singer, who acts as a narrator throughout the story. In this version of the Caucasian chalk circle, the role has been given to the judge, a figure who continually communicates with other actors and the audience, a traditional yet modern approach to this performance. The music is live, making use of an array of different instruments from all different cultures. The result is a clash of sounds, but at the same time, the sounds work together, leading to heightened emotions.
The instruments you'll see here are instruments from a band, like a guitar, bass, piano, but there are also classical music instruments, 국악 instruments like kayagums, and even electronic instruments involved. The purpose of mixing all these sounds is to appeal to the modern generation, but also to create the needed tension on the stage. However, in the center of it all, the voice of pansori will be heard loud and clear.
A mother's love is supposed to be the most unconditional, sacrificial type of love found in humanity. But who decides who that mother is? This circular ring, within this chalk circle, will determine a mother's true love. Im Yoon-hee, ARIRANG News.
And we have another art piece to share with you. This year marks the 70th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japanese colonial rule. To remember the efforts made to win back the country's sovereignty, 2 musicians are reenacting a traditional song close to the hearts of Koreans. Our cultural correspondent Kim Ji-yeon reports.
This traditional Korean folk song called Mongunpo Taryong expresses the hopes and dreams of lovers who await to be reunited. It's being sung at the very palace where it was originally performed for Korea's Emperor Kim Kojong during the late 19th century.
We decided to play Mongunpo Taryong because it's one of the most representative traditional folk songs beloved by Koreans.
It's an honor to be able to play this song in this palace. I feel a sense of pride and I'm touched to be in a place that symbolizes modern Korean history.
The Deoksugung Seokjojeon Palace stands out from other historical structures in Korea. Kim Kojong commissioned British engineer John Harding to build his empire's first Western-style building with elements of neoclassical architecture in mind. After it was completed in 1910, the king often escaped there to stay grounded in times of emotional hardship and crisis.
With the death of his queen, King Kojong returned to this Deoksugung Seokjojeon Palace with a plan to establish a new political system to secure national sovereignty from rising foreign imperialistic powers.
As part of efforts to reinvent the country and secure sovereignty against Japanese colonization in the early 1900s, Kim Kojong renamed his empire Daejeon, and to this day, the country is commonly referred to as Daehanmingu in Korean. To mark the 70th anniversary of the country's liberation from Japanese colonization, songs representing Korea's past and present will be performed every last Wednesday each month until August. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. Although we had a chilly start, temperatures are quickly rising, and cold mornings and nights are expected for a while, so make sure to have extra layers of clothing. Now, air quality still looks good today, and clear sky continue, except there is a slight layer of fog in the capital and its surrounding regions. Now, with people complaining of dry skin and hoarse throats, it's impossible to forget about the lack of humidity. And today, more advisories have been upgraded into warnings, which means the effective humidity is at 15 to 35%. So try to drink lots of water and have a humidifier nearby to keep you healthy. Now, with that in mind, let's have a look at the readings for today. So we'll be lingering around 16 this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern regions such as Gwangju and Busan will top to 18 and 17 degrees. Moving over to other regions, Jeju Island gets up to 15, Dokdo hits to 14, while Mangungan tops to 7. Well, that's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
And that's a wrap from us at this hour. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung in Seoul. Another edition of ARIRANG News coming up at 6 p.m. Korea time.